Hi there, I'm Adam. I work at Blue Egg, a little agency in Sydney. I have a couple of startups. One of them is a surfing startup. I also talk really fast, so I apologise for that. Anyway, let's get cracking. I'm going to talk today about mythology and design. So, mythology to me can be looked at as a story that explains how things came to be the way they are. Right? So that's what I see from that perspective, and I think it's a really important aspect that we need to bring into design. It's a really interesting thing that really affects how people respond to their environment, respond to things, and respond to what we're interacting with. So dragons, who doesn't love a dragon? I like a dragon, everybody likes a dragon. Dragons are cool, but there's lots of other things, unless obviously they're breathing fire. But dragons are great because you've got this mythological creature that people have an instant reaction to, they know about. But there's lots of other things as well. There's Thor, there's Greek gods. There's lots of things that we can talk about there. So I do love talking about dragons because it's just such an immediate reaction, right? And who doesn't love a dragon? Dreamtime. Dreamtime is a very powerful tool used by Indigenous Australians. Really can mean fertility, land, water. There's lots of different interpretations brought to it, but it's been used in paintings, rock art for thousands of years. Very strong connotation, and it's effectively storytelling, which is really cool. So that's where mythology and storytelling really blend really well. That's not too much to be said on that, other than the fact that obviously it's Australia versus New Zealand, and there's a little bit of mythology about Eden Park, and Australia never really winning there for like 300 years, so we can leave it at that. We've got a siren from the 16th century. That's the Starbucks thing. Now, if you like Starbucks, I'm sorry. If you don't like Starbucks, then I agree. Anyway, so there's a siren here, but she's really powerful. She's not singing to us, hopefully not, but she does have a lot of sugar, so that's why we keep going back, I assume. But there's a very strong connotation to mythology and brands actually building this into what they do because they know we have a response to that, and it's not a mistake, and it's not just by chance that they've actually done that. So how does it apply in a real world scenario? Well, I'm going to be a little bit kind of self-reflective here because I have a startup, which is a surfing startup. So as you can see, I've got a girl, we've got a surfboard, so that doesn't really seem like a problem. But, we've actually got a opportunity for us to sort of say, okay, we're starting a surfing startup. What do we need to understand? I'm not really a surfer. My founder, he's a surfer. He loves surfing. We've got a guy who's a kite surfer. Crazy. I don't know what that's all about. Another guy who surfs. I don't really. I kind of like long walks along the beach. Sunsets, that kind of thing. I do kayak, which is not really as extreme as surfing. And it's really important to understand the surfing mythology and culture, and there's a heap of it that relates to surfing mythology. There's so much. The ultimate waves and all kinds of stuff you've really got to be cognizant of, right? So for disruptsurfing.com, how do we build mythology and language and all of this stuff into a website that makes people want to buy our boards, basically? So there's a scientist, I'm a scientist. I can talk about the dichotomy of science and design a little bit later, but that's probably not the best thing to do right now. It's a really short talk and you're probably on the bus, so that's not really going to work at all. So anyway, I talked to a lot of surfers, gratuitous plug, there's the Disrupt logo. So I talked to a lot of surfers and I was really wanting to know, what do they see? What do they connect with their board? What's so special? How do they buy a board? Why do they buy a board? Why do they surf? All of this stuff I needed to understand, right? And so obviously, as these guys were confused, I was confused, they were confused. I also found a lot of insight too out of talking with them, the fact that they actually didn't sometimes always have a very good connection with technology, which is really an interesting insight. So that meant that we needed to make sure that what we were doing had a certain level of comfort to it, right? It also meant that I was confused as well, but that's the standard practice. So it's elusive. They're artisan, like a sourdough. If you're in Sydney, it's Burke Street Bakery, but it depends on where you are. Anyway, everyone loves a sourdough, except there's probably too many of them and less they're too sour. Anyway, so elusive, right? So it's this kind of idea that it's elusive, that it's really hard to find, that you've got to find a surfboard that only you can find, that a shaper who is a shaper. Now, people might not know what the language of shaper is. Shaper is that guy or girl who actually makes your board to your specs. So how do we build those kind of things into what we're doing, right? So you can see this shaper here, he's spending a lot of time. There's a lot of connection to this. I'm really connected to what this shaper is doing. I'm really connected to how this works. I really need to understand this process. I want to know this person. I want to have a relationship. So how do you do this online? It's really tricky. But what we've tried to do is really, remove a lot of the concerns and make people feel really comfortable, right? And then the ultimate wave. The ultimate wave is really big. So you've got this massive wave. I don't get it. People surf in Chaupu. They go to all these kind of crazy places, South Africa, wherever they're going. They go off reefs. They get on things. They go over there. It's crazy. Anyway, the ultimate wave is what they're all after. How do you build that into what we're talking about as well? And so language as well. Language is much more than just industry, right? Nonsense. Language is actually really ingrained into the whole process. So, you've got bailing out, you've got dropping in, you've got kicking out, you've got snaking, you've got snap, you've got towing, you've got all these words, and they have such a strong relationship, usually negative because someone's cutting you off when you're trying to go for your wave. But they're all tied to the whole approach to surfing. It's not just about some term that they've made up. It's actually really ingrained as part of the ultimate wave and surfing culture and how that actually works, right? So then what are the design impacts? How does all of this stuff really affect what we're doing? So there's this guy, Willett Bland, he blends everything. He's a little bit crazy. I think he's probably blended way too much, way too often. Anyway, not sure what he's blending, but it got him through uni. All right, so the things that we've got to look at are ownership, taxonomy, relationship, right? I need to feel I own this process. I need to feel that I'm online and I totally own it. I need to be comfortable with the language. It meets what I'm talking about, but it also meets the mythology of the industry. And I've got to have that relationship with someone, right? So disruptsurfing.com, visit it, check it out, buy a board. Fantastic. You can probably have a split screen while you're watching this right now. Perfect, great. So you've got, a site that meets the language of who we're talking to, includes terms like shapers, makes sure that they feel comfortable with it, make sure that we explain how the process works, make sure that they can contact people. And then we did a little bit more testing. There's some test tubes, pipettes that got me again through uni. It's quite a slow process. You don't really want to get involved. Anyway, she's got blue gloves on, so it's safe. All right, so you're doing this now. This whole process here, right, is where you want to feel comfortable. So we want to make people feel comfortable in making the right decision on buying a board. How do we narrow down those options? We ask them some key attributes, but we ask them in language that makes them feel comfortable. We use some imagery, some iconography that really makes that experience feel really relaxed, and then they feel like they've actually picked the right board, because that's part of the process. Do I buy something with a lot of volume, a little bit of volume? What does even volume mean? It means how fast or slow you want to go, and depends on the wave. So it's really important, right? But we need to make people feel comfortable in making the right decisions. And then to the point where you've got our configurator, where you're basically able to pick designs, upload your own designs. You can be really, put artist designs that we've got there. You can just go with base colors, you can go with bamboo, but you can then also check, is this going to be all right? You can talk to a shaper online, you can email us, you can make sure that design is right? Make sure it's comfortable. And that's part of that disconnect with the elusive shaper, is sometimes what I design with a real shaper isn't what I get. So we want to make sure that people feel comfortable that what they've designed is what they're going to get. And then storytelling, all right? So it's bringing all of this together and doing that storytelling. How do we actually make this story really engaging as well? So, obviously there's Gollum, and he's a little bit creepy, but we're all doing that sound in our head of what he says, the ring. Anyway, I'll keep my ring on. But he's a little bit creepy, but it's an immediate reaction that we have. So the reason we're doing this storytelling, the reason we're bringing in the ultimate wave, the reason we're using the language of shaper, the reason why we're doing all of this is to make sure that people see a story, because surfing and mythology is a story, right? It's storytelling about, I want to buy a board, I feel comfortable that this site understands why I want to buy a board, I feel comfortable that they've helped me make a decision. So happy days, all right? And so when we go to places like the Shark Tank and ask for VCs for money, we can also then translate that storytelling across to the real world, which is pretty cool too. So I think that's important. Anyway, mythology in my perspective is part of design. Use it for good instead of evil. And I think that's important. If you do that, it's in your hands to be able to take how people respond to their environment and use it in a positive way that means you have a more engaging experience. So long, and thanks for all the fish. Cheers.